ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Polyhedron Claddercast episode 40.
40. That's a nice big round number.
Well, they do say life begins at 40, so does that mean we're going to get good now?
Let's not overstep the mark.
Well, we're on a journey of continuous improvement. We can only get better.
That's one way of looking at it, yes.
Yes. Hi, I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
And I'm Andy Lewis, the most optimistic member of the group.
Really?
Not usually the case. So why are you so optimistic today, Mr. Lewis?
Oh, I'm not at all. It's because I've finished work, I'm at home now. And I have a bottle of wine, so things are infinitely better.
Now we're getting to the crux of it.
Yes.
How much of that bottle of wine have you already drunk?
About half a glass.
Oh, right. Well, okay. I thought you were going to say half a bottle then.
Well, the glass does contain half a bottle.
Is that one of those comedy glasses, is it?
It's not that big, but it's you can get a large glass of wine in a pub that contains 250 millilitres. This is bigger.
Is it two of those?
Not quite, not two, sir. Three, sir.
I would like a pint of wine, please.
Do you know what? It's not far off.
I did go to a friend's house once, and he did have one of those comedy glasses, and I didn't realise it at first. I thought it was just a big red wine glass. And he starts pouring out the bottle of wine, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's enough." "No, it's all right. There's not much left in this bottle." It's like, you've just opened it. And he did. He poured an entire bottle into this one wine glass.
Now that's
classy.
the sort of man I want to be associated with.
So there you go. When I said, "Well, what are you drinking?" He pours out another bottle. "Well, I'm having this one." like as if this was the most normal thing in the world.
This wasn't
Well,
Big Tim by any chance, was it?
It was indeed my friend Big Tim.
There
yes.
we go.
Yes.
The man is probably 3 times my size.
I think it's 4 times your size, actually.
Maybe.
About 15 times your volume.
Yeah.
It's quite fascinating. A few years back, he met up with our other friend Sid. And you and Sid are the same height, aren't you, John?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tim and Sid are the same build. Their kind of body ratio is the same.
Yeah, okay.
But you don't realise this until they're standing next to each other and you think you're looking at some kind of forced perspective shot from Lord of the Rings. Because it's like as if someone's like done some kind of extrapolation. It's like if you took Sid and increased his volume by 4, you'd end up with Big Tim.
Is it like almost like a set of Russian dolls?
Yes.
Yeah, but don't try and put Sid inside him. That would be weird.
Well, you'd need a few glasses of wine for that.
Anyway, we're supposed to be a board game podcast. Well, a tabletop gaming podcast, anyway.
Well, you can't tabletop game without some alcohol. It's just rude.
Or a sense of humour. That's also important.
Yes.
True. Very true. I've played with enough people who don't have a sense of humour.
It's not fun.
Card game tournaments are particularly rife for that.
Ooh, drier than Gandhi's flip-flops.
Lovely. So, Steve, you've been a little bit out of the loop recently, haven't you?
Yes, I do apologise to anyone if my audio quality is a bit weird today because I moved house last month. Oh my God, it's nearly a month ago. Oh my God.
Well done.
So I moved house. We've got somewhere bigger, which I now have a little bit more room to store games. I say a little bit more room because now I've been told they must all be contained within the one room.
Oh dear.
As long as I can fit them into this room, it's fine. But the problem is, I've got like a 5x5 Kallax shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And all the games were on that Kallax shelf, and they all came off and into boxes, and then they've come out of boxes, and I can't for the life of me work out how they'll fit back on.
Now, the intelligent person might have taken a photo before they disassembled it. But that's the sort of thing you think about when you're staring at all these boxes on the floor and going, that would have been a good idea.
Are you suggesting Steve is not an intelligent person?
I'm saying during the house move, no one is an intelligent person.
Yes.
It's a stressful thing to do.
Indeed.
It was quite weird, actually. The first thing we did when we got here was set up the gaming table, though.
Obviously.
Yeah. Mainly because it would be in the way otherwise, but it is quite reassuring to think, right, first thing in is the Geek and Sun table.
Yep.
Nice.
Let's just grab a game, shall we?
I think it was probably reassuring yourselves that it was definitely going to fit and you hadn't made a huge mistake with this house. Because once that's in and you can see that it's not too cramped in there, then you know it's all good.
To be fair, it was a bit of that as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I can see on your webcam, Steve, there's at least another, I reckon, 2 or 3 feet of spare wall above the current sets of shelves.
Between the shelves and the ceiling.
Yeah. Eventually, you definitely need floor-to-ceiling shelves on all 3 of the walls that aren't the window.
Yes. It's pesky radiators, that's the problem.
They do
Yeah.
get in the way, don't they? I mean, they have the uses,
Yeah.
obviously, but, when you've got board games to fit in a room, who put this here? This radiator, let's get rid of that. We don't need that.
You can probably take it out, because once you've got the computer going, you'll be insulated with all that lovely cardboard. That room won't need any extra heat.
I've got to admit, this is the first day of hot weather, and if this is a vision of things to come, I'm already stewing in my own juices in here.
You're basically sat in ball soup.
It's... Yes.
If it makes you feel any better, the study in our house is exactly the same.
See, I walked into my flat this evening, and it's all single glazed, so in winter it's a little chilly. But I walked in this evening, I thought, it's quite cool in here. It's lovely.
You do live in a cave, though.
Yeah, it's quite well shaded, your place, isn't it?
It is, yeah. There isn't much in the way of airflow.
Or daylight.
No, that's through choice. Every time Alora comes down, she insists on opening the blinds in the windows. I'm like, no, don't be ridiculous, woman. Exactly, I fry like a vampire. It's horrible. Evil woman.
She's only thinking of you, Andy.
Yeah, well, I think it's overthinking.
She just wants to get some vitamin D, that's all.
I don't need it. I've got vitamins in the bathroom in a bottle. It's fine.
Although they do say vitamin D helps you, it makes you happier. If you don't have enough of it, it makes you sad.
Maybe that's why I'm such a miserable twat.
Well, if the boot fits.
And I wear 2 boots.
Oh, dear. So Steve's been out of the loop.
Yeah.
Out of the loop? I don't think he's been anywhere near the loop out of it otherwise.
But we have collectively managed to play a couple of board games, haven't we?
We've got some things that we can talk about, yeah.
Yeah, it's just none of it's cardboard related.
Well, that's never stopped us before.
So, I haven't played this recently. Me and John played this at the City of Games convention in Bristol a few months back. And it's the one game we forgot to mention in the podcast itself.
By forgot, you actually mean we talked too much and ran out of time.
Yes.
Steve edited it out.
Yeah.
Edited it.
Well, no, we decided not to talk about it because we were sitting here for like 3 hours and going, I think we need to stop now.
The will to live had left the room some time ago.
What's worse? Is it worse that we'd forgotten and that was unprofessional, or is it worse that we decided not to talk about it because we waffled too much about other crap?
And therefore was
Equally bad.
unprofessional. Yeah, exactly.
Equally
John's
bad.
right, yes. So either way we look at it, we're not looking great in this, are we?
Okay, so let's focus. Right, the game in question, Steve.
The game Vadoran Gardens, so it's just
Vadoran Garage was that?
Vadoran Gardens.
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 Oh, God. Oh, Jesus.
Sorry, I just had a flashback to Steve trying to do voices in our D&D session.
That was all over the shop, wasn't it?
It was, somewhere between Irish, Welsh, Scottish, Indian, and then eventually back to Steve.
You know what it was? It was Russell Crowe from Robin Hood.
Yes, which was basically all
It
of those
was.
accents.
Every accent but the one he's supposed to be.
Yes. Vadoran Gardens, not Vadoran Gardens.
Gardens.
Wrexham accent sticking through there. It's just hit Kickstarter this week. So it's Wednesday it hit. But it's not hitting as a game on its own. It's hitting as an add-on to people who back the second printing of City of Kings.
That seems a bit rude, considering some of us back the first print. Where's our copy, Frank?
It's an add-on, so you can still back it and get it.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to back the main box. You just go, I just want the add-on. Oh, okay. I take it back.
So at the same time, there's some expansions for City of Kings.
Ah, yes. I was talking to Frank at Aircon about his cheeky expansion. He said, don't tell anybody, Andy, but now the cat is well and truly out of the bag.
So there's also some miniatures, I believe, for City of Kings as well.
No, he's broken the rule.
And they look beautiful.
I've not looked. I haven't looked. John has actually done more. I know. John has done more Kickstarter research than I have. I'm actually stunned.
You don't actually do any Kickstarter research, though, Andy. You just look at a page and back it.
Well, that's mostly true. Not
to be
entirely, because I had a look at Fireball Island the other night and went, oh, that looks pretty, and I didn't back it. You should be proud of me.
Yet.
Did you click the heart button?
No.
Oh?
I
Didn't
know.
even click the heart button.
I'm growing up. Little boy is growing up.
I think he's lying to us, Steve.
It's true. You can check, because if it had have clicked like, Steve would have been told. Kickstarter would have grasped me up.
That's the best bit. Get these notifications that Andy Lewis has backed this project.
Yes.
And this one, and this one, and that one.
I did actually recently back, which I think is just funded. Actually, yeah, quite a while ago, because I've just got the pledge manager for it. The Knights of Fire project, which is the sequel to Days of Ire from David Turksey.
Okay.
Because I never actually got to play it at Expo when I was talking to him about it. He said, yeah, come back for a slot. And of course, we were really busy, so I never actually got to go back to him and play it. So this is almost like an act of penance on my part. And also, I feel like we're continually apologising for not liking Petrichor. So I'm backing this as an act of penance.
Your mind works in mysterious ways, Andy.
Yes, it does. But to be fair, I did really like the look of Days of Ire, and it does sound like my sort of game. It's dry, it's contemplative, there's not much going on, and the artwork's quite straightforward. So exactly my sort of game. Not boring to everybody.
But
Anyway,
Vadoran
yes.
Gardens is neither dry and contemplative or functional artwork. It's a beautiful little tile laying game, in fact.
It is quite cutesy pie, yes.
It is. Now, have either of you played King Domino?
No.
I watched you play it with Amanda.
My analogy for you two then doesn't really work because Vadoran Gardens is similar in its basic structure to King Domino. So King Domino, you're trying to make like a square pattern. I think it's 5x5 grid of these domino features, with each one having a different kind of terrain. This is similar in what you're doing is trying to match terrain. So the theme of the game is you're supposed to be wandering through a temple's garden on the way to the sanctuary in the middle. And you score points for having the most interesting journey.
Right.
And what that means is basically what you're trying to do is match areas to make there's several different kinds of terrain on these cards, on the path tiles. I think there's ponds, there's grasslands, there's sand pits.
Decking sand.
Is there a fourth one? Or was it just the three?
Yeah, there's sort of mud as well.
And there's a weasel. Every good game has a weasel.
So what you're doing is you're drawing these cards in the same way as King Domino. So there's a certain amount of cards available in front of you, and you get to pick certain ones. And then you're laying them out in a path going left to right. And you've allowed some flexibility in where they go, in that they can basically move 2 slots up or 2 slots down.
But there's a hard limit.
There's a hard limit, and you're always placing them on top of previous cards you've already played. And the idea is you're trying to match terrains, like make the biggest pond you can, and then the biggest desert or the biggest grassland. But you're getting bonus points for things that are also on there. So you say the little weasel, which is like the little cutie pie weasel on the cover of the box. That's a little creature, and I can't remember exactly how the points go, but for instance, a pair of them will double your points for that area.
Don't you need a number of different ones as well? Gets you a lot of points. If you got 6 different ones or something stupid like that. I forget. Yeah, I was only watching because I came in halfway through, having done something else, and obviously turned up late to the party. You two were halfway through a game. And went, right, what's all this about then?
We kept on trying to encourage you over, but you were deeply engrossed in some conversation about some of the game I think it was with the Geekinson guys, maybe.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Karen about Doom.
Yeah, I liked the game, but I do feel like one thing, we rushed through it pretty quickly, and as we know, I'm not the sharpest learner of board games.
No comment.
We were trying to get in a game of Defection. So we were just having this quick game, he said, just to learn it and see what it was about.
Be right with you. Be right with it, John. We're going to start. Be right with you.
I just missed something in the way it was explained. And then every time I placed the tile or planned what tiles I was going to place in the future, I just got it massively wrong. Frank was saying, a typical score for this game will be whatever it was, 30 points or something. And if you get more than that, you're doing very well. And he stopped at that point. And then we played, and I got 10 or 15 or something. And I was like, so Is 10 or 15 low? And he just sort of smiled. Smiled a kind of, no one scores that low, John. Nobody. Children do better than that. So yeah, I would really like to play that game some more. I think I will actually enjoy it once I've got my head around the basics.
If you play King Domino, you know the basics, and I think that helped with me in that you could see where the common kind of DNA of where this game comes from. But I think it was a lot more, I'm not going to say a lot more complicated, because it was subtly more complicated. But what it meant is there were a lot more options for scoring, more things to keep your eye on.
I think that was the problem I had.
Yeah, because there were bonus points for lots of different factors of things that were happening. If you played King Domino and thought it was too light, or you've played it and you want something just that one step kind of cranking it up a notch, I think it's well worth looking at this game.
It looked interesting from an observing point of view, because there was a bit. Yeah, I mean, I'd say I watched you playing King Domino. There's a theme here, watching Steve playing games. Seriously, it's almost a spectator sport now. Having watched you play King Domino and then watched you at the same event play this, I can definitely see the commonalities, but I think, yeah, this was better in the sense that because you've got 3 columns of tiles you could choose from. Each one's got a different talent or a different ability or something like that. There are different symbols knocking about. I didn't start, obviously. I came in halfway through and went, so what do these symbols mean, Frank? Shut up, Andy. We're playing a game. All right, okay.
And I was sat there like, no, seriously, explain it. I've got no idea what I'm doing. This one? No, not that one, John.
Because there were 3 columns of tiles, because you had to, what is it, you picked one and reserved another one or something like that for the next round, didn't you? That's right.
That was the bit that was really baking my noodle.
Thinking ahead. It's difficult. We totally need to play Tolkien on that basis, John. That's going to destroy your brain. But it's an awesome game.
I'll probably reach that point where I do with a lot of games that you like, Andy, where I just think, I just don't understand enough.
What, you think I do? No.
I'm just going to pick these ones.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's why I never win them.
I really rather enjoyed that, and I think I will be backing something on that Kickstarter of some. I might even back City Kings.
Yeah, you see. Ooh. Yeah, you see. He's got the not the fear of missing out. He's got non-backers remorse, hasn't he? Because he's seen John and I getting this big tasty package, snigger.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want one of them.
We both got it, but have you played it yet?
No.
You need to. I feel really bad.
I've set it up. I've sorted the box out. I've set it up on my table and thought, right, I'm going to play this. And then 2 days later, when I ran out, I'd still not started the bloody game because I ran out of time and I was busy. So no, I haven't.
Yeah. In my defence, our dining room is covered in small pieces of wood that didn't quite fit. In my attempt to make a frame for a magic mirror.
If you're interested in Vadoran Gardens, it's an add-on on the City of Kings Kickstarter that's currently running on Kickstarter by the City of Games. So go check it out.
Yep.
Complete aside, I've been looking at this on Facebook, John. What the hell is a magic mirror? Because all I've seen is pictures on your Facebook of computer monitors and bits of wood.
So a magic mirror, in essence, is a mirror, a two-way mirror.
It's magic.
With a computer behind it. So you've got a screen behind a two-way mirror. So when you look at it normally, like under normal lighting conditions, it just looks like a mirror.
Isn't the two-way mirror basically just glass?
No, not exactly. It's got a silvered layer behind it.
Okay, so it's partially transparent.
Exactly. So if one side's dark and one side's light, if you're on the light side, it will look like a mirror. If you're on the dark side,
wear white clothes.
If you're on the dark side, I'm going to give up in a minute. If you're on the dark side, then you can see right through it. There you go. So, if, for example, you wanted to show some random stuff for the day, so that when you wake up and look in the mirror in the morning, you can see what your calendar looks like, what the traffic's like to work, what the weather's like, how late you are for reviewing all those board games we're supposed to review. Every day you'll get this little reminder just shining away there in the mirror for you.
And after about a week of it telling you really need to do this, you punch it, break it, and never look at it again.
There is entirely that possibility.
Please tell me. Well, on the basis of when you say, you get up in the morning and clean your teeth, please tell me you're going to program it to say, "Good morning, Dave."
Well, we could get it to do anything because it's powered by a Raspberry Pi. So, yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Cage, sir.
Yeah.
Oh God, you could make it sound like what's that character from Ready Player One? His little sort of AI that organises his day. It's got a stutter. Good morning, but it's from a film in the 80s.
Max Headroom.
Yes, Max Headroom.
Yeah, I could
So
do that.
probably
but then I
a
definitely
massive
would have to
spoiler for the
punch it.
book, but never mind.
I don't remember that from the book at all.
It's later on when he's got his own room and his own sort of.
Did anyone notice the Max Headroom cameo in Altered Carbon?
How far in is it? Because I've only seen about 3 episodes of Altered Carbon.
It's about 4th or 5th episode.
Oh no! Do you like Altered Carbon?
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I've only seen about 3 episodes, and I have to say about half of those I've slept through because I was so tired when I was watching it. I'm gonna have to re-watch them. So, but I really like the idea because it's kind of like Blade Runner meets Terminator.
Yeah.
I really like it. So, by the way, I'm a multi-mega billionaire, and I'm gonna hire you to find out who killed me. But you're alive. Well, it's not quite that simple.
Yep. It's very good.
Yes. No, I do like it. I'm going to have to sit down and watch it eventually.
This is a bit of a random question, but have we guys actually not chatted in a while because we seem to be talking about anything but board games today?
I don't think we have. This is basically what the podcast should be. I mean, although I suspect we're probably going to overrun.
The only times we've seen each other since we went to Aircon, in fact, was when we sat down at Andy's house, played some board games, and those are pretty much the games we're mentioning in this podcast.
For some reason.
And that's pretty much all the board games I've played.
I have been playing quite a bit, actually. A game that we mentioned on our games we're looking forward to. I'm looking forward to because it was my Kickstarter. Rise to Nobility, which is the second game in the series of the 5 Realms series from Final Frontier Games. And it's the sequel to Cavern Tavern, which I really liked. Steve didn't really like. And I can't remember what John thought of it, but I think you were slightly
John
ambivalent.
also didn't particularly like.
Well, you two can because you're wrong.
Everyone's entitled to their opinion, Andy.
They are, and it's just not my fault that your opinion is wrong. But Rise to Nobility is the sequel to Cavern Tavern. It is another dice placement game, so Final Frontier are very much sticking to what they know. And Rise to Nobility is about essentially settling people in the realm. So the idea is that you're taking over from Burke the Clerk, who's supposed to be running the Stone Council, who's in charge of basically making sure that visitors to the realm have somewhere to live.
Burke, come in, master.
Don't open that trapdoor! For anyone born after 1985, that's probably not going to mean much.
And again, outside of the UK, it probably doesn't mean much.
Yeah. But the idea is that people visit the Cavern Tavern. So the Cavern Tavern is actually in Rise to Nobility. It's great. So people sort of congregate there, get a drink in the triage lounge, the green room, before they are sort of hustled into it's almost like going on. Did you ever do sort of foreign exchange when you were at school? You swapped families. Like you went to France and some French kid came to your house and you were there for a week as you learned French. It's a bit like that.
I never did it, but my sister did an exchange with a French student.
It sounds almost like that, where you're sort of visiting a strange home, except you stay in that home forever. But the idea is you've got a bunch of races, and although the races are slightly vestigial, the idea is that you play a person who is basically taking these people into your part of the realm, building houses for them and settling them. And settling them requires to pay resources in order. So basically, they have demands on, right, in order to live to this place, we need to, have 8 magic wands, 5 battle axes, 4 bits of jewellery, and a chair. And we'll come in. And so for every resource you provide to them, you'll get a victory point. And there's a minimum and maximum you can do for each group of people, and so on and so forth. The idea is that you play dice onto the board into various areas. There are 6 guilds. Each one builds a particular type of resource, so magic wands, furniture, jewellery, all that sort of jazz. And you can build improvements to each of these areas by introducing these people who you take in. So if you settle them, you can turn them into apprentices and ultimately masters of a particular craft. So each of these guilds can take an apprentice on board, and you gain benefits for these apprentices in the form of money or free goods or whatever it is. And you can train them up, build a workshop for them in that particular guild, and turn them into a master, which then eventually gives you free stuff.
Cool.
But each workshop gives you an additional bonus action, and basically the game gets more complicated as you go along. Ultimately, you score points for settling people and building other things. But it's very cute. It's very cool. It's bloody complicated. It's a lot more complicated than Cavern Tavern.
It sounds quite simple conceptually.
Conceptually, it is, but it's one of these games that has a lot of, I'm not going to say faff, but easily overlooked stuff that can make a massive difference. So every time you do something in a particular guild, if there's like a workshop there and somebody's got a master in it, the person who owns the workshop will gain a bonus for it. So it's quite easy to overlook the fact that you get the bonus. And of course, if you've got an apprentice in that guild, they'll give you like free stuff. Like if you go there and do some shopping, it's like, oh, I've got an apprentice in here. Gives some free stuff, down the back door, as it were.
So this sounds like another game that you guys are going to start shouting at me about again. Whose turn is it? It's John's turn. It's been John's turn for half an hour. Hang on, I've almost got it.
To be honest, we actually played it last night in our gaming group for a full 6 player, and I've played it with 2, 4, and now 6 as well, so I've sort of given it the full experience. And with 6, I think it's actually a little overcrowded, because it has to introduce this little expansion to cope with 6. With 4, it plays really, really well. But I mean, it took us 3 hours to play it, despite what it says on the box at like 25 minutes per player. Although, to be fair, actually, no, that's not bad, actually. That's about right. Yeah, that's not too bad. So it can take a while with a lot more players. With 2 to 4, it rattles on relatively quickly. But, of course, it restricts the amount of space, like any worker placement game does, basically. It just says, right, you can't use these bits if you've got fewer players. But I really like it. I think it's better than Cavern Tavern. It seems a lot more balanced. Because one of the things in Cavern Tavern, if you got a crappy dice roll, you couldn't really do very much. Whereas in Rise to Nobility, there's always something you can do.
That's better.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that irritated me about Cavern Tavern.
Yeah, I can see the criticism. It's fair enough. But with Rise to Nobility, there's a really nice mechanic that you have 3. I wouldn't say scoring, but you have 3 tracks to keep hold of. Is you've got your victory point track, which is sort of easy enough. That's your final score. But you've also got Nobility. Because the idea is you're supposed to be rising up the ranks in the council. Although it's kind of thematically it's nice and mechanically it works, but it's almost vestigial. It allows you to do certain actions later in the game. Basically, you can buy victory points essentially for a bit cheaper than instead of settling people. But also you have a reputation, and this is sort of your reputation within the council, and that allows you to spend more dice points because you can't just spend all your dice.
Oh.
Yeah.
You mean you can't do all the actions?
Yeah, it's almost like they've thought about it. They've been listening to this podcast and said, right, we need to make sure that there's always more actions that people want to do. But you can, depending on what happens, because it does depend on your dice roll. But you can, if you have, say, a reputation of 15, you can spend up to 15 points worth of dice, essentially. So if you've got, 2 4s, a 3, and a 6... I'm hoping my maths works there. Then you'd be able to spend 3 out of 4 of those dice because you've only got a reputation of 15, because the total is more than 15. You can spend whichever dice you like, but you're not allowed to exceed that total. There are ways there is a way to increase your reputation, so you can spend more eventually, but it takes you a couple of turns to do it, obviously. So there's a nice little limiting factor there. So whilst you're like, oh, well, what happens if I roll a shitload of 6s? That's kind of annoying, but there's still places you can still play, because having a 6 is quite powerful. It allows you to do more stuff on the board. But whereas 1s will still let you play, but they're not quite as powerful. So you can play more 1s and do more actions, but you'll need a single 6 will get you more for a single action. So it's quite nicely balanced in that way.
That sounds quite interesting, actually.
It is. I really like it.
Is there some sort of time limit on it? Like, when does the game stop? When do you finish?
There's a 10-round limit.
Right. Okay.
The end of the game is actually quite, I'm not going to say abrupt, but quite well defined. It's not particularly complicated at the end of the game. Basically, it's the person with the most VPs. There's only 2 end game scoring things that you need to take account of. There's your nobility, so how much of a knob you are, Cuthbert.
Cuthbert would be proud.
Indeed. So you rise up the nobility track, which allows you to do more stuff in the Stone Council, essentially, which basically buys you more things in this particular sort of, you can buy VPs with resources area. And you get money for resources that you still have at the end of the game. And that is literally it. So most of the scoring is done during the game, so you know where everyone stands.
That's good.
Okay.
I've been a huge fan of games where it's completely hidden, and then you find out at the end that Steve's got like 15 times your score. Nothing worse than thinking. Like there's nothing worse than thinking that you're doing all right in this game, only to be absolutely destroyed.
There's only one partially hidden piece of information, and that's only if you play a 6-player game that you, or you choose to use the expansion called Chancery, which is essentially another way to use your apprentices, and they basically give you an ongoing bonus throughout the game. But in doing so, you can draw a particular type of card that will give you like an end game bonus. But you have to spend dice to activate it. But if you do activate it, you get a hidden bonus, basically. And it's usually like, you'll get 2 VPs for each card that you played with a jewellery icon on it or whatever it is. So, I mean, it's not usually a massive bonus, but it can be enough, to take you between, second, third, or first, or whatever, 4, 5, 6 VPs. But that's an optional extra that you can play. Other than that, everything is open and visible to every other player. So we were playing last night, and Lloyd had literally pretty much every resource token in the game on his player board. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And he got something like 14 victory points. Just for owning stuff. I'm like, that's loads. So we jumped 2 places.
What's a good score in this then?
Well,
He says, I don't know. I've never got a good score.
Well, I won last night, you cheeky git. And I got a score of about, I think it was about 78. So around about 80 or so. But the scoreboard goes up to 100. And with good reason, because I played it with Alora and our friends Chris and Katie in Wolverhampton. And I don't know how Chris did this. He had this absolute amazing strategy, and he's got something like 98 points at the end of our game of 4 players, and he beat us by about 20 odd points. He spanked us. I don't know how he did this, but he obviously cottoned onto a really good strategy. No, Alora almost accused him of cheating. He was like, how the hell is that possible? There's no way you could have done this. I said, he has. It's fine. She's like rifling through his cards. This isn't possible. Just admit it. You got twatted. So yes, I think a score of sort of 80 points plus would be a reasonably, you'd have a decent chance of being in the running for that. But I mean, at the end of the game, we were all quite close. Nobody got absolutely thrashed in a 6-player game. Even, given that I was the only person who played it, the 5 were hot on my heels, considering I played it, 3 or 4 times before. And they were only within about 8, 9 points of me. And you can get that many points in a single settlement card. So they're really not far behind at all.
I always think that's a sign of a decent game, where even if you've never played it before, you've got a chance of at least competing.
Exactly. I honestly think if we played it again with the same 6 people, there's no way I'd win. I mean, it's possibly more to do with the fact that I'm shit at worker placement games, as much as I like them.
Well, at least you're honest about it.
I am. Yeah. Because I get beaten so many times, it makes me a really good loser, but I'm a really crap winner. Losers!
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think you two will probably prefer this to Cavern Tavern, purely because there's always something you can do. You're not as dependent on your dice roll as you are in Cavern Tavern.
Okay. Well, I'll try this out then.
Unbelievably, Steve and I are the ones that don't like the random element in that game.
It can be frustrating, but as I say, I think it's a better implementation of the randomness than it is in Cavern Tavern. I can accept the criticism of Cavern Tavern that if you get a crappy dice roll, there's not really much you can do, and therefore your entire round is humped. But in Rise to Nobility, there's still stuff you can do. So even if you don't necessarily score points that round, you can set yourself up quite nicely for the next 2.
So you can more consistently put together a longer term strategy.
Yes, exactly right. Yes, which is nice. And you can pull dick moves. So it's got everything.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, we should play it.
We should.
Yeah,
I really like it. I'm glad I backed it. So yeah, another good one from Final Frontier games, in my opinion, anyway.
That was Rise to Nobility then.
Yes.
We haven't played enormous numbers of games recently, but the one thing we have been doing more consistently is we have been doing a spot of D&D.
Yes.
We have indeed. In fact, Dungeons and Dragons is probably currently enveloping my entire life.
Good. For it is awesome.
I seem to be thinking about it every waking moment.
Yeah.
It's good that we're not the only ones doing that.
No, John and I are all over this at the moment. I mean, I've personally loved Dungeons and Dragons since I was like 8 years old and I was playing Eye of the Beholder. But I think it's wonderful. I really do. Because I'm DMing a game, I'm playing in Steve's game as well, and I'm also writing an adventure too. So I love D&D. I think it's wonderful.
It's very good. So do you want to set the scene a little bit, Steve? I think we mentioned it before, haven't we?
Okay, yeah, I was going to say that the reason why we're playing it so much is I was conscious that I was struggling to get gaming in since I'd moved. This is before I'd moved this time, so I've moved like again in 12 months, in a 12-month period.
You're just compounding the issue, Steve.
Yeah. I'd heard a lot of people talk about playing role-playing games on the internet via a few different websites and a few different services. But the one that kept coming back time and time again was something called Roll20. It's not the only one available, but it seemed to be kind of the most popular, which I was seeing on various forums and such like. So I thought, what the hell? Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. So sent the message out. Is anyone interested? About 8 of you said you were interested.
Yeah.
I was expecting maybe 3 people to say yeah.
A somewhat larger response than you'd anticipated.
Yes. So I think we had a go with, I think, was it 5 or 6 people in the first session, I think.
Something like that,
yeah. Something like that.
So just keep it going. No, we didn't entirely use Roll20 exactly as it's written because we'd heard some people online would say they weren't particularly happy with the online voice and video chat. And we kind of agreed with this because we never actually got it to work ourselves. I mean, I could get it to show video, but that was about record video, but that was about it.
I didn't even get that far. But that's because I use apparently a browser reserved purely for terminal nerds.
Yep.
You can stop that smirk, Tudor.
I've done some subsequent research, and I reckon we can actually get it running. There's some bits and pieces you can fiddle around with, so it might be worth another shot when we've got a little bit more time. But
what we've been using is we've been using Discord as a voice chat system, which I think actually works quite well. Again, it was the first time I just used Discord, so once I think you've got your head around it and told everyone to use the push to talk or set the voice levels,
it's good.
It wasn't
I like
too
it.
bad.
Yeah, it's good.
So we've delved into D&D. Of course, this is Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Yep.
Which no longer has the name after it. I must admit, it's always, earlier versions used to say 2nd edition and advanced. It's now just Dungeons and Dragons. There's no messing around.
You will play this game.
And
yes, ma'am.
Well, I think we're all bloody enjoying it, really.
Yes, we are.
It's a lot of fun.
It is. Really enjoying it. The good mix of people as well.
And experience as well.
Yes.
Now, Roll20 has had a few quirks. I think there are some... Now, I don't know how much of it is issues with Roll20 and how much of it is issues with aspects they've tried to add in to make it fully compatible with D&D. Because I think it's so ridiculous, like 90% of the games that are ran on Roll20 are D&D 5th edition. So, of course, what they've done is they've made D&D character sheets and they've incorporated a lot of the rules, but there are still aspects of it which don't seem to ever work correctly or need a lot of tinkering in the background to get it to work properly. Like, for instance, I still can't get monsters to appear automatically on the turn order list.
Yeah, when you've rolled initiative.
Yeah. So everyone else clicks their token, hits a roll for initiative, and not until they appear. I just can't get that to work automatically. I'm doing something wrong. I don't know what. And it involves poking around at the back of it, but there's quite a lot of work.
Pulling a few cables out and turning a few gears.
Yeah. But there's things you've got to do as a DM to prep anyway. Like you've got to make sure like all the artwork's in, because what you can do is you could actually just play D&D just over Discord or Skype or what have you. But we're using Roll20 is it holds all the character sheets, it handles all the dice rolls, and it's also doing maps and handouts and things like that. So battle maps can go up. Everyone's got a little token on it and controls all that. And I've even got like a little fog of war thing I can use, which is pretty cool. So I can reveal bits of the map as you go into it.
That is really cool, actually. I like that. Because part of the problem with playing it on the tabletop, unless you've got lots of different pieces of paper or you draw the map as you go, it's very hard to keep stuff covered without having nudging it so people see what's coming up, or you draw it wrong, say, oh, no, that's not quite right, and you spend ages manually drawing it and copying it from the book, going, hang on, and then it breaks the flow of the game. So, that idea is actually really, really useful. Even
if we were to play this in person again, like I would really like to try it out, like put it on John's projector and put in the player screen on the projector, and still have so you still have the map out in front of you on a big screen.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I do like that as much as I am really liking Roll20, because it does give us a lot more availability, because obviously, as adults with jobs and lives and things, where obviously everybody has their own schedule, so actually getting to somebody's house is difficult these days. Whereas, sitting down in front of a microphone for an hour or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is a lot easier. People don't have to travel. You've got babies you can keep an eye on in the background, for example. It's much, much nicer. So the availability of it is nice. But as a person who is embellishment and waves his arms around like some kind of nutter in a rave, it loses something over the mic, because we've decided we're not playing with cameras, so it's a little difficult not to see everybody's. So you've got to be explicit in, right, so Arrakis does this.
Yes.
Which is fine.
We decided quite early on not to use video, just to use audio, which I got to admit I'm the same thing, because I was intrinsically, I'll make facial expressions for the NPCs you're facing and then go, crap, I have to say, right, this NPC frowns at you.
Yes, exactly.
We should give that another shot.
Yeah, we should, I think. If everyone's got a decent camera, or at least a camera that works, and everyone's got a reasonable connection, which I'm sure they do these days, I think it might be worth going. I don't know, we could run it like they do on, is it Critical Role, where they've got eight videos on the same screen?
I have looked into how we can do that.
Of course you have, John, because you're our resident nerd. I mean, that's a sort of relative thing, because we're all nerds, but...
Different sort of nerd.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not easy to set up, but I think I've got the gist of how we could potentially do it. I think it would be good fun to record it. It'd be really good if we could go back in time and record the earlier sessions.
Yes. I'll tell you what I really enjoyed was, I was talking to Steve, I think after our last session, where all the characters had essentially finished their split quest. So Steve's managed to run a parallel set of quests for essentially 2 groups of 4 adventurers, and we've managed to sort of come back together. I don't know how he's managing this. I mean, it's really, really cool, and it must be an absolute head for him. But,
we've converged again.
Yes. So basically, everyone met in this virtual pub, and was it you were saying, Steve, that essentially you were almost ancillary as the DM, because everyone's now got to grip with their character so much that the evening was just basically 8 D&D characters having a chat in a pub.
It was great, because the whole point where you were converging was, as I said, we've got 8 players, so we're playing 2 separate groups running the same campaign, so that they're supposed to be concurrent. So it's not like as if I'm running 4 players at a time for the same dungeon. You're doing different dungeons, so events are happening simultaneously. But yeah, the idea of this session was to get you all back together again, so you can make decisions as a group about where you want to head next. And if you want to change the group, we can split the group between you
as a group.
As you said, you were all in such the right role-playing mode that all I had to do was throw in some little bits of information here and there just to direct you slightly. I mean, the whole point was supposed to be the quest givers we turned up and explained what they wanted you to do. Yeah. But even that, I mean, I think we did a 3.5 hour session, and that was about 20 minutes of it, half an hour tops.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Which was great for me, because it was in the middle of me moving house, so I didn't even have to do any prep. I needed no maps, I needed no NPCs. I had notes. It was this NPC has got this vague voice and looks like this, and there's this personality, and that was it.
That sounds like what I do for a full session in front of 4 people.
I think
What's that? The seat of my pants, they sound comfortable for flying.
I think it always bodes well when you find the players in your game are meeting up in real world pubs in character to do a bit of the backstory. So myself and Andy went to a nearby pub and had a few beers, and we basically had the meetup of our characters, and we sort of made some mental notes about the conversations we had, then wrote that up as this was us reporting back to our 2 parties as the heads, the unofficial self-appointed heads of our parties.
whether our parties liked it or not. Right,
yeah,
this is
right.
what happened. The beautiful thing is, the backstory of this was that Arrakis, which is my character, was a tiefling sorcerer and chaotic neutral, so basically doesn't give a shit about anyone. He's also a charlatan and particularly well-spoken. And John's character is a really friendly, overexcitable bard who just wants to be famous.
Basically.
And of course, these 2 characters, John's a chaotic good and I'm chaotic neutral. So John's sort of on the side of good but doesn't really follow the rules. And I don't follow the rules and don't care. And as characters, they've kind of butted heads to start with and decided, right, yeah, we kind of need to sort this out. So, right, let's have a beer. And it turns out that the 2 characters actually have a lot more in common than they realised. So it was a voyage of self-discovery.
Yep. It was good fun.
It
and
was.
Then it was quite satisfying then handing that off to the other players to get, because until that point, the 2 groups had been separate essentially. So we didn't really know what the other group had gone. I mean, we kind of had a rough idea that we knew that one group went off through a portal into another universe full of mechanics, and the other group went off to the disease district.
Universe full of mechanics.
Mechanical devices, I mean.
Yeah.
Not people who fix cars.
Look at your car and go...
There's a lot of sucking of teeth in that universe.
Do you reckon car mechanics at the end of the day exhale massively because they've been breathing in for the rest of it?
I think they breathe in between, Andy.
Oh, don't ruin it.
Sorry.
Do you know what I found really tough when we were actually almost LARPing, which I vowed to myself years ago I would never do, and pretty much did with you in the pub?
LARPing's dressing up and running around in the woods.
That is true.
This was just an in-person D&D session. It's different.
That is true. But I found it really tough when I went to the bar, having been in character as Arrakis, just not chatting up the barmaid and say, "Thank you, my dear, you're delightful." No, Andy, no, back in character. Oh, no, wait, that is me.
Back
Shit.
out of character.
Back out of character.
It turns out Arrakis is a method actor.
Thank you, my dear. One actually on the subject of LARPing, this is probably sort of an urban myth, but I heard years ago that a LARPing group in the States were involved in some kind of heist as part of the story. So the group basically tried to rob a bank. They basically broke into a bank during the day and demanded people paid them money. Obviously, they were arrested. Like, no, we're just playing, honest. Get in the car. You're under arrest. But we're just playing a game. Get in the truck.
These related to the same one that put their camper van on cruise control and then went and made a cup of tea in the back. Because they thought it drove itself.
Probably the same demographic. I don't know if it's exactly the same people. Although, no, that can't be true. People aren't that stupid, really. Actually, no, they are that stupid, aren't they? I've seen the Darwin Awards.
Indeed. So the other thing I think that's a real clear signal that we've been doing something right in these sessions is that some of the new players who have literally never played D&D before, and
never played any RPG before at all ever,
are spending enormous amounts of time like fiddling around with their characters. Coming up with their bios and their backstories and asking loads of questions. And I mean, Ben is definitely guilty of overthinking things, but But the character he's come up with as a result is really good.
is. The end result of all of this effort is absolutely superb.
And he's gone and delved into loads of Forgotten Realms lore as well, and tied it into like locations and characters and events that are actually happening in that backstory, which is really, really good because that makes my job easier to make something more interesting for them to happen. But also, as a stroke of luck, something he's decided is part of his backstory crops up in the adventure. Because I'm going to be running a published adventure. It's going to crop up in it. It's perfect.
Oh, God. Do you know what? I'm sorry I wrote my own bloody backstory when I first started. And obviously, because I've been playing D&D for 25 years, it was easily done because I know most of the lore. But I was like, yeah, I've done this. And yeah, kind of screwed over my uncle who happens to have been a Barlaw. A Barlaw, you say, says Steve. Well, you're sunshine. Thanks. Great Uncle Fenny. Wonderful. Steve's just rubbing his hands with glee.
One of the things we didn't do, which a lot of groups do, which I've heard of since, is this concept of the session zero, where rather than jumping straight into the game, you have a group session where you fill in your backstories and try to match it to what you think is going to happen in the campaign and that kind of thing. And we've been quite lucky in that regard, in that although we've ended up with a completely random set of characters, nothing really doesn't not work, if that makes sense. So everything can fit in quite nicely. Now, part of the reason why that works is we are running bog stand Forgotten Realms, which is D&D 5th edition's flagship setting. So the entire rulebook is set up so that you can use this. Anything out of any of the D&D rulebooks fits into this nicely. So we don't have to kind of go, well, we're not going to be in favour, and so we need to get rid of this or this or this.
We did do some rough stuff to begin with, like this one's going to be a fighter, someone else is going to be a rogue. Okay, well, let's have a magic chucker as well.
Hello.
Okay, so we need something a bit different. All right, fine, I'll be a bard. Never been a bard before.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the good thing about technology these days is you can kind of hold that session over, messengers and Facebook and stuff like that, or indeed over Skype like we're doing now, and you can get a lot of that out of the way, which helps.
But you're right, Steve. That session zero thing that they talked about on the Dungeon Masters Ludus on Secret Cabal, that was really good. It's a really clever idea to sit down and work out what sort of kind of adventure do you want.
Yeah.
And then, roughly speaking, how would your adventurers meet? And it just helps you guide people into writing those backstories. And it glues a bit better.
It makes the first adventures a little bit easier to start with as well.
Yeah.
Because, I started with the concept that you'd all been called to this pub by, the promise of work, but you'd all been sent there separately. You didn't know each other before you began. Which kind of worked in the group you had, thankfully. It fell together quite quick because the action started quite quick on that one.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Yeah, so someone got robbed, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on? We have to help. Do we really?
No, let's just rob the place.
I am not a thief. That is Sid. I'm just going along with it.
You're just an enabler.
I'm.
Yes.
My Arrakis's methodologies are much more subversive. Sid's thief is much more of a proactive redistribution of wealth. Mine's more of a persuasion effect that to persuade other people that their money is better off in my pockets.
Yeah. Okay. So yours is more talky, and his is more
takey.
Fingers in pockets.
Exactly. Yes. Arrakis happens to be a sorcerer that just happens to be a con artist. And I think it's rather good.
Yeah.
Do you know what? The mix of characters we've got is so good. Everyone has taken to their roles so well. And there is actually almost tension between some of the characters. It's brilliant. It is so good. Mostly with Arrakis, admittedly, but it's so much fun.
To explain to people that are listening, we've got 8 players, so we've actually got 2 barbarians in the group. So we've got a barbarian and a multi-class barbarian warlock, which is quite an interesting character. But then we've got a few more stalwarts. We've got a human paladin. We've got the tiefling sorcerer, so basically a devil.
Hello.
We've got a what's the cleric? What Asimar cleric? So that's an angel.
He's a librarian, basically.
Who's basically a librarian. We've got the bard, which is John's character, and then we've got
the druid.
Druid who's a mushroom druid. He's basically just renamed all the spells. So he's basically taken all his druid spells and kept the same effects, but called them different names.
Right.
I think that's brilliant. I think what Adam's has done there is absolutely superb. I think that's a really, really, really amazing piece of creativity on his part there.
Poison Cloud becomes like Spore Cloud. It's just said the rules are exactly the same. I'm not changing any of the rules. I'm just changing a bit of flavour text on them.
It's brilliant.
Are we missing out? We're missing one more. Sid, Halfling Thief.
Yes, the Halfling Thief. Yes. So it's a really good mix of characters, and everyone's got their own personality. Everyone's really taken to their personality. As John says, even the newer characters, whilst I think they've all gone through the thing that everyone does when they first encounter an RPG, is that they treat it almost like a problem to be solved rather than something which needs to be acted and kind of just do what you want. There are no limits to RPGs. That's the beautiful thing about them. The only limit is what the DM permits you to do, and even then it's going to be, give me a dice roll and let's see what happens. Oh, you rolled a 1. Well,
Yep.
And I think everyone's now got over that after a few sessions. People have started to take to their characters, and the interactions are just so much fun. I never would have thought that my tiefling bellend, basically, would have got on so well with a paladin. A paladin, of all things. A con man and a paladin. And the best bit is, the paladin owes the con man a favour.
It's good fun.
Oh, it is wonderful. I am really, really enjoying it. Everyone has been superb.
I think we're really enjoying it. It's highlighting a couple of... Because we've got a couple of new starters, kind of like people who've now played D&D before, it's highlighting some of the issues that I do have with Dungeons & Dragons, which are never going to go away, unfortunately. It doesn't matter what they do with Dungeons & Dragons. You say, like, everyone, like, Ben has gone away and he's really gone into his backstory and created this deep character. But one of the things he's also had to do is really, he's had to really digest the player's handbook so that he can level up.
Yeah.
It is not accessible.
Yeah. And, like, for instance, if we're going to play Call of Cthulhu, there's next to no leveling up. A couple of skills go up, basically, each time. I could play a session in Call of Cthulhu, you guys now, and not have to tell you a single rule. I could just play you through the game. Whereas, I think I've mentioned this a few times before, Dungeons & Dragons requires the players to absorb quite a few rules and quite a few concepts.
I think there are pluses and minuses to that, though.
Dungeons & Dragons is the biggest role-playing game in the world. There's
the world's
no doubt
greatest
about that.
role-playing game, apparently.
Yeah. It's just, I always think if someone's to ask me if I want to start an RPG, what should I play? I would be reluctant to suggest D&D because there's such a unless you've got someone who can guide you through it. It's difficult to recommend it as like a first RPG.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I love D&D, and I've been playing it for years and years and years, like you have, Steve.
Yeah.
So I personally have no problem recommending it, as you've just alluded to there, that provided I'm around to help them learn it, it's not something that you can really go. I mean, Ben's living proof of this, that you can't just go away and read a rule book and go, okay, I get it. The reason I've learned so much D&D over the years is because I've basically played the computer games. So I've absorbed the lore through things like Eye of the Beholder, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter Nights, which incidentally I've just finished again the other night and really enjoyed. Beat the you know you're doing well as a cleric when you walk into a room and beat the crap out of 2 dragons without taking a single hit. But there's nerd. But and of course, playing all of that stuff, you get to know the lore, you get to know how characters work, you get to know how the system works, and how all of these stats come together. Purely, I think, more through osmosis than anything else. So when you actually start reading the rule books, you think, oh yeah, I know how that works, and it becomes more of a skim when they release a new version of it. Whereas, of course, if you're coming into it completely fresh and bleary-eyed, you're like, oh my god, what the hell does all of this mean?
So I think I'm going to have to disagree with you, Steve.
Oh, okay.
It is a complicated system. I would agree with that bit. But I don't think that just because it's a complicated and quite deep system, that should put people off giving it a shot.
Agreed.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, if you get the Mines of Fandalar starter set,
True. Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
it gives you most of the campaign, the flavour. And okay, it's not the deepest story. It's not massively complicated.
I would actually say that from a Dungeons and Dragons point of view, the Mines of Fandalar is a very deep and well-written adventure.
It is. It is. It's quite complicated. It is quite complicated.
Because I'm going to give you a comparison. We've not actually run it, but I've got the Edge of the Empire Star Wars RPG starter set. And that's interesting because the adventure in that is written as if you're coming straight to RPGs from playing none of them before.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost presents it like a choose-your-own adventure.
Okay.
So rather than saying, okay, you're running away from stormtroopers into the cantina, what are you going to do? It says, do you want to hide? Do you want to try and talk to someone? Do you want to run out the back?
Oh, that sounds almost too simple.
What it does is it expands. It's the starter, so it's assumed that you know nothing about RPGs when you start this and goes a little bit deeper and a little bit wider every time.
Okay.
But whereas Mines of Fandalar just goes, boom, there you go. Here's this
Here is the
adventure.
deep end. Wallop.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a caveat to that, and a point in case, you can, as a new player, get sidetracked.
Yes.
There's a door on the wall. Open it. No, you can't. Open it. Well, right. What? It's magical. No, open the lock. You can't. It's a door. Leave it alone.
Okay, so this is the shape of the dungeon, which means we must be able to get round to the back over there. No, there's just a pile of rubble, John. You can't go through that way. Cuthbert the Knob starts picking up the pieces of gravel one by one. There must be a way through the door.
Oh yeah, and thus begins the issue with being a dungeon master. I mean, we are blessed, and I'm actually going to sing Steve's praises here. This does not come out of my mouth very often, praise, but Steve is an excellent DM.
I would agree with that.
And I think that, I mean, his experience obviously shows.
He's never going to get back out of that room.
Well, yeah. The fact that I know my character's in a lot of trouble and probably one of the reasons of driving this adventure. But anyway, it really helps when you've got a good DM. Because a lot of the stuff that happens in the background of the game for the players is in the DM's head. And if the DM doesn't know what he's doing, you're in a lot of trouble because it can break the flow.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot more rules for the dungeon master than the players. But we're lucky because we have a Steve.
We do.
Everyone should have a Steve. I try my best with my group, but I run my game slightly differently. So, I mean, obviously everybody has their own foibles, of which I have many.
Everyone has their own style of running it as well.
Exactly.
Because I think one of the difference between the way you were running, because you started running Horde of the Dragon Queen with us, didn't you?
Yes, and it's the adventure I'm running with my current group.
Yeah, one of the difference and this is just a stylistic thing. You were running Horde of the Dragon Queen kind of as written, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So and I'm not saying this is a better or worse way of doing it, but what I do is I as I'm reading through it, kind of go in my head, will go, I don't think that's going to work, or that will work better, or just kind of go, right, well, that bit has to happen, but this bit we can be flexible about, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but that's a stylistic thing as well. You can choose how you want to run it.
I think that probably speaks more to the fact that you're a more experienced DM, to be honest, Steve. But I think with hindsight, having just got through something like 4 sessions of them basically being in a caravan, even I, as the DM, got bored of it. So it's like we're all like, Jesus Christ, thank Christ that chapter's over now. And it's like, right, you're all on a new caravan, and everyone just went, oh no, because they've basically just gone through Waterdeep to change caravans, and weird stuff's going to happen in future. I'm not going to tell them what, because some of them listen to this podcast. But I think with hindsight, I think what I should have done was basically do a couple of the suggested scenarios from the book and done a lot more of my own stuff, a bit of character discovery, maybe gone into the backstories. I think that probably would have made it a little more interesting for them. So I think that's my failing as a DM there. But at the same time, I don't know. My criticism of Horde of the Dragon Queen, I think, is that it is the first major publication pre-written adventure, aside from Minds of Fandalar, for D&D 5e. And you can tell, because it falls into a really serious trap so many times of assuming what the players are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And almost never does that happen.
Yes. In every single game ever run by any DM.
Exactly.
Every single written module wrongly assumes what the players are going to do.
The players will probably do this. No, they won't.
No,
My players
no,
are
they won't.
wankers and have decided to make use of the warlock power of going, well, I'm just going to be a spider and sit in the wagon we found is clearly belonging to the enemy and sit here for 3 months. You. And I tried to pull a
3 months.
fantastic dick move on Paul, who's a mutual friend of ours, and is in our current game. Who's actually playing a paladin in my game, but he's playing the Aasimar cleric in Steve's game. And Paul he spent ages deliberating over to buy this magic cloak because his character's quite reserved. And he borrowed money off one of the other characters to try and buy this cloak. All right, so he owes one of the other characters like 400 gold pieces or something ridiculous like that. So, of course, he's very proud of this cloak. And I decided, right, halfway through this caravan journey, it's getting robbed. So, of course, I mean, one of these sort of optional scenarios was that basically somebody goes, "Oh, that's a nice cloak," and spends a couple of days trying to convince them to sell it as the build up, and then of course one night they all go to sleep and the cloak goes missing, and it turns out it isn't the person who's been chatting them up; it's just somebody else who just comes along and robs it. And then because of that, the idea was, I thought, well, okay, if they see somebody's tracks going into the wood, they're going to follow these tracks into the wood, and I can start a side quest. One of which is one of the optional scenarios in the book as well. And I thought, brilliant, I can tie about 3 of them together. We can spend a session doing that. It'll be ace. No, that's not what happened. Paul just turned around and gone, well, I've got track item as a spell. Bang, where is it? You bastard!
Nice.
You've just ruined 4 hours of prep and an entire session. You twat!
Was what you shouted in your head.
No, that's what I shouted at.
Brilliant.
Oh, thankfully so far you guys have not kind of gone completely off reservation yet.
Oh, just you wait, Steve.
Not quite yet.
Oh, I had to think of an entire session on my feet after that. You bastard. I mean, kudos to the players for actually playing to their character's strengths.
Yep.
But god damn it. That's just me as the DM not looking at their character sheets and going, oh, he's got that, okay.
Yeah. Well, that'll always happen. They'll always do something that'll completely surprise you.
Yes.
And take you completely off course.
Mm.
And then there's other times when you think to yourself, oh, they're going to do something really obvious. And they don't. We tried that, the Faith, the sci-fi RPG.
Mm.
And it was a bit kind of video gamey at one point. It's like, oh, you find a cache of grenades. All right, got some grenades, boys. Then they meet fight this alien plant thing, which is like surrounding them in the jungle, and they're getting their asses kicked. And it's
Use the
like,
grenades.
I actually had to say, use the grenades. That's why you got given them. And they went, oh yeah, didn't think of that.
Lord.
Yeah. It's amazing in the heat of the moment. You just you try and deal with the problem without thinking about all the other stuff that you've got in your kit.
Yeah. I think actually that's where video RPGs are, I wouldn't say better, but they obviously make what kit you've got a lot more obvious. So they make the problem almost, basically they get around the problem you just mentioned there, John, that you don't rifle through 5 pages of character sheet to try and find the one article that might actually help you. You can see your character sheet on the screen. You can see what's in your inventory. Oh shit, yeah, I've got a potion of healing, or I've got a potion of storm giant strength that will help me batter the crap out of this ankeg for whatever.
So that's one thing that
Roll.
Roll20 does help you with, because it keeps it all. You can keep it all
Yes.
up on screen essentially.
Yes, it is good for that. It'd be nice if they expanded all the drag and drop stuff, like the spells and all the kit and stuff, into the character sheet. But I mean, it's
And if it all worked.
And if it all worked, yes, that would.
Because there's a few things I found for my bard that I've had to pretty much make myself to get it to work.
I
I
think
can't
we
remember what they
all
were
have.
off the top of my head, but yeah, you can click a button now and it'll roll approximately the right dice, so that you at least get a number that you can apply to it.
Yes.
I think Vicious Mockery might have been one of them. It doesn't.
Yeah,
do
you keep trying to
properly.
cast that.
Yeah, and it works.
It does. It does. Just don't cast it at Arrakis. Doesn't like it.
He could probably suffer 1d4 of psychic damage and disadvantage on his next attack roll.
Would that count as a hit? And if so, would I be able to do Hellish Rebuke, Steve? Because that would do 3d10 of fire damage with absolutely no hellish chance of save.
Given that we're on the same side, I'd hope not.
Do not poke the tiger, young bard.
There is one thing that I've been mulling over about the Roll20 system, and more. It's just sort of D&D more generally, really, and that's the use of maps. So when we first played with you, Steve, I loved the idea of maps because it helped you see what was going on. It helped you get an idea about the surroundings and all that sort of stuff, and give you a more clear picture, which sometimes could really help. It helps your character interact with the world a little bit more. You know that like that creature's 30 feet away and that one's 60 feet away, and it gives you instantly, you can look around a little bit more and get a feeling for what your character would be able to see and what they would likely do.
And just to explain, when we first started doing it, we were sitting around a table playing, so traditional pen and paper.
Yep.
And what we got is, I can't remember the name of the company now, but there's a company, they're always at UK Games Expo, and they do like RPG stuff. Like, the only way I can think of accessories. I know they said accoutrement.
Salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce.
And one of the things they do is these A2 printed sheets and A1 printed sheets, which are just like large scale grids.
Yeah.
No, that's all it is. And what we did is we had one of those. I bought like a set of 5 of these so I could draw out maps if I wanted to. But all we did was roll one of these out and put a clear piece of Perspex on top. And got dry erase markers, and I would draw out the map as you were playing. It was a bit rough and ready, but gave you an idea of what people were doing. And then I think I got all the miniatures from Descent to hand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
So
yes.
it was a little bit of an approximation because I've only got the core set for Descent. I haven't got all the add-ons or all the extra miniatures. So it was like, here's some goblins. Okay, you've killed some goblins. Here's some hobgoblins, which look suspiciously the same as goblins.
But they're hobgoblins.
They're a bit bigger, but they're just further away.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was quite good, and I got the hang of that. And then we played another session with you, Andy, which I would have liked to have continued, but it sort of ran out of momentum, didn't it?
Yeah, I think just everyone moved around, and it was just difficult to keep going.
In that one, we didn't have any maps. It was just you describing most of the stuff, and I found it on a couple of occasions quite difficult to follow. Like what the world looked like. Like I'd cast something over here, and then you'd be like, okay, but the monster's nowhere near that. So, and I was like, well, okay. So how does the world look then that I would cast this logically? And like that bit felt a little bit clunky. But now that we're doing it on a map again, and having watched some stuff like Dice Camera Action, I think I've come full circle. And I think taking it all into consideration, I think I prefer the without the map option. If you've got if you've got a DM who's able to describe things well enough that you don't have that bit where it's like, I'm going to cast a grease spell over there. Well, okay, but no one's ever going to step on it, John. But it was going to be hilarious.
Not to pick a specific example. Andy, you f***ed up.
There were other examples as well. Like there was a U-shaped valley that we were going into that I just couldn't get my head around. But
okay, so as a DM, I need to get better at my descriptive skills, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
which is fair enough.
But also, I mean, I was still a relatively new player. I'm definitely getting the hang of it more these days. And the more I watch these things, the more when I watch like Dice Camera Action and stuff, I can more visibly picture how the world looks. And because you're describing it all, you're not looking at this like 2D map. You picture it more fully, I think. It's almost more engaging.
I agree with that because I actively, as a DM, try to avoid using maps where possible. I prefer the power of imagination. Obviously, there is the onus on me as the DM to actually describe it properly, so there's no confusion, which is a fair criticism. But I find maps are very distracting, and everyone just focuses on the map and kind of ignores what else is going on around, and it almost turns into a dungeon crawler. Like it's almost like you're playing Gloomhaven or Descent or something like that. And I don't want that in as a DM. I want people to role play. I don't want them to picture it as a strategy game. Tell me what you want to do as a character.
I find that the less players you have, the more that becomes viable.
Yeah,
and
I
the
totally
more
agree with
players
that.
you have, that less. Like for instance,
Agree.
one of the encounters you had on one of the sessions is you were trying to escape Mechanus, which is the planar home of the Modrons, and you had to basically get across an open area to the portal to get back home to Waterdeep. But you were stopped by Modrons, and the whole thing about Modrons is they work in this kind of primary number pyramid. So if you have like 4 of this type of Modron will be controlled by 1 level above, and then to have 2 of them will be controlled by 1 level above. So there was basically like 16 troops they were fighting at any one time. And I don't think I could have managed doing that with just keeping that in my head.
Yeah.
That was one where there was absolutely no chance. But say, for instance, if you're just fighting against a dragon, an entire party's fighting against one monster, then yeah. And then the previous game I played, where I was dungeon mastering, we didn't use miniatures for that. We didn't even have a map or anything. We just explained things, and somebody had a scrap piece of paper for some of the maps.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it didn't become a problem on that one. That was 3 or 4 players, and we never had any issues. But then again, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that Modron fight without some kind of miniatures or board or something. It was just too complicated otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, because once you've got, 4, more than about 6 bad guys, it does become difficult for players to keep track of where things are. I mean, as a DM, I find it really easy to keep track of them in my head, but trying to relay that information to the players becomes quite chaotic, quite difficult, quite confusing, because everyone interprets what you say very slightly differently. And all of a sudden, I thought he was over there. Well, is he not over there? I thought he was here because I was going to do that if he was going to do that. And it's like, yeah, okay, fine. I'll admit defeat and just draw a goddamn map.
The other thing is as well, and this is something I really do like about using Roll20 for this, is in the olden days, right, back in like the mid-90s when I was playing the most.
Back in days of yore.
All the maps you got were basically just really simple black and white line drawings.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that does make a difference. That's an improvement.
Yeah. So when you're playing like the modern, and we're using like some of the pre-made adventures by Wizards of the Coast, they've got these beautifully rendered maps. I mean, is it David? I want to say David Schley. He does a lot of them, and they are absolutely gorgeous things. And I hate the idea of this gorgeous artwork just being in a book that only the DM sees.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the beauties, I think, of using something. Even if you didn't use it for combat and just used it as the map to show what was happening and where, I think I would still use that. I'd still make sure that artwork is visible to everyone.
Maybe that's the sort of neat compromise, is to show people a map that explains what stuff is around, to give you the rough geometry of everything. And that could be beautiful maps. But then you describe things more fully yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a DM. I should caveat all this. I've never DM'd anything. So this is just my experience as a player. I've never DM'd anything yet. But I have backed Dragons Conquer America, and I've got enough to run a session for 2 to 5 people. Just saying.
Ooh.
Hello. Can I bring Arrakis to that party?
No.
God damn it. He is my finest character.
Put the dick in a box. A different box.
Phrasing.
So yeah, I think we are all absolutely in love with Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
Massively.
Yes, absolutely we are, to the point where I have every single book in a nice wooden chest.
Yeah, that is pretty. My wife has started worrying about me a little bit because
What just now?
No, okay. Well, most recently, she's been worrying about me because I've been spending an inordinate amount of time crafting this stupid bard. So one evening, I spent probably about 3 or 4 hours photoshopping a picture of someone who looked vaguely bardish, but he had a lute, and I wanted him to have a flute. And his clothes were a bit too garish.
Only one letter, man. Only one letter.
Yeah. Very different instruments, though. But I spent probably 3 or 4 hours just fiddling around with this little picture. And Kaz's like, you still doing that?
They don't get it, do they? They just don't get it.
But my mind's running away with it. Look, he's painted a hexagon on his chest now, so he can try and befriend that Modron. He's got it all worked out. He's replaced his massive scabbard that had some huge longsword in it with a scabbard that's split in two that takes a rapier and a flute. It's all coming together.
Nice.
It did take
I
some
love
effort.
the inventiveness that comes with it. I really do. It's just so much fun.
It's the way it fires people's imaginations. I think that's the magic in
Yes.
it.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm in danger of falling down a Vadoran rabbit hole, though.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
One of the problems we've got is we are running it in Forgotten Realms, and it's not actually the D&D setting I grew up with. Because although I played Baldur's Gate when I was in university, before then I'd always played Mystara or Mystara. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it.
Yes.
Which is a setting that D&D have largely forgotten about because it's not even mentioned in many of the core rule books at the moment.
No, there's only usually the three now, isn't there? It's what? Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, and the other one.
Greyhawk. And
That's it, yes.
Then occasionally Eberron.
Oh, God, I've not heard that name for a long time.
Oh, yeah, Eberron's the weird one, because Eberron's the one where it makes kind of logical sense. It's what happens if you take your typical fantasy world now and advance it another 500 years.
Ah, so you have cannons and muskets.
Well, no, you have laser weapons and robotic armour and
really?
things like that.
Interesting. So that's why there's things like a plasma rifle in the rule book.
Yeah, it's things like that.
Yes, in the DMG, yeah.
It's really upping the kind of technology level of it, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, Dragonlance is just people who want more dragons, because there isn't enough dragons in Dungeons and Dragons.
No,
So
it's
throw some
clues
more
in the
in.
title, Dungeons and More Dragons is what they should have called it.
Dragons and dragons. No, it's good.
So yeah, I've had to kind of learn a lot about Vadoran kind of from scratch.
Should have asked me.
The problem is I'm learning about stuff that even the video games haven't even scratched. There's 30 years of kind of stories and information that people have put together for this.
There are 2 books you need, Mr. Tudor. I'm basically doing Wizards of the Coast's marketing for them right now, but you need Sword Coast's Adventurer's Guide.
Got it.
And you need Volo's Guide to Monsters.
Got it.
Read them.
I'm
Again.
also reading through the 3rd edition Forgotten Realms guide, the
Nice.
2nd edition Savage Frontiers guide,
That was a good book.
and I've also started reading some of the novels which are based around it because they're things that link into things that might happen in this campaign.
I saw that pop
Nice.
up on Facebook the other day, and I thought he's been researching. This is going to be good. Excellent.
See, we should do a D&D podcast. Screw the tabletop bullshit. Let's just move to D&D.
Well, we have had a request for live, recording a session.
We've had a few requests for recording
We've
a
had
session.
a few, have we?
Yes.
I know we've had one, but I didn't know we'd done a few
we've
more.
had a couple as well.
Okay. I think we'd have to be a bit more on our game with rules and things like that, not stopping
Oh no,
every
that's
5
what makes
minutes
it
and go,
fun. You can't do that. It says in the rulebook I can DM. God damn it. Fine, you can do it. But you're getting screwed later.
No, we've been having an awful lot of fun with it.
We have. We've just talked for half an hour on D&D. That's how much fun we've been having.
In which case, boys, I think it's time to wrap this up. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. We've been Polyhedron Collider, and I really hope you enjoyed our discussion about Dungeons and Dragons.
We did.
No doubt there'll be more discussions of this in the future as this campaign continues, because we've got a session set for tomorrow night, and then another session set for a week's time.
Count on it.
I'm rather looking forward to what happens when Andy gets to the north.
No. See, the sense of foreboding again. God damn it. He's already based half the campaign on my backstory.
You love it.
Basically, Arrakis has a rock in his pocket that he robbed from a demon. And with the spirit of here, that would have been a potentially career-limiting decision on his part.
I'm sure it'll all be fine.
I'm sure it will.
The other half of the group haven't found something that looks exceedingly similar to it either.
Yeah, no, not at all. That happens to have, set them both vibrating. So is that a rock in your pocket? You're just pleased to see me. Sorry, my dear, it's just a rock.
Yeah.
Anyway,
fun to be
we
had.
have been the Polyhedron Collider Dungeon Cast.
If you actually enjoyed listening to us talk about Dungeons and Dragons, please come again.
And if you didn't, please come again anyway.
Yeah, we'll be recording podcasts in about roughly every 3 weeks. If you enjoyed this, please give us a review on iTunes. Of course, only the 5-star button works.
Yep. The other ones are broken.
I
Don't even
found
bother.
that. I really have. Seriously, I've tried to give us 1 star before, but it said no. No, 5 stars. You're wrong, Andy, for once.
Every time you click that button, a puppy dies.
Murder them! Murder them! Wait, no. Arrakis, shut up.
If you want to speak to us, we are available on Twitter. The group is Polyhedron C, so you can contact any 3 of us on there. And we have individual Twitters of I'm Hoffelmadenga.
I'm Sonic H with a 0.
And I'm John_Cage.
We're also available on Facebook, and we're on the Board Game Geek Guild 2726. See you in a few weeks. Tatty bye.
Or at least hear us. Hurrah.
Catch you later. Jesus Christ. Sorry. My cat just obviously wants to come in. There's this disembodied cat arm just going like through the door.
Round the door.
I wonder what the hell that was then.
I was going to say, what Steve just said wasn't that contentious.